Okay, so received a question from Miss Laura Bethay this morning. I'm just going to read it out real quick and then do my best to answer it. Uh, she had asked for a video to cover some of this material, so I'm going to try to make as short a one as possible because I think those are a little more useful than the maybe 2-hour case management training. But the topic is trying to help staff understand when and when not to exit participants. Of course, if they are not receiving any services, they should be exited, but also trying to explain when performance is captured 90, as far as the 90 days after exit, and explain the quarters that they will be captured in for performance and when they have to show employment. And then she requested like a video. I don't know of any videos. I'm sure there are some out there, but I'm a doer, so I'm just going to create a little video. And hopefully this is helpful. But let me share my screen here real quick so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, so for the first question, when and when not to exit participants. As discussed in the training, there is no call to exit participants in a certain time frame, right? The idea is that you've exited them once they are entirely prepared to enter the job market or to move on to some kind of post-secondary training. That's the idea. And that's just a good rule of thumb. Obviously, some participants are going to stop coming into the Career Center. Some participants are going to want to discontinue services on their own. But if you're just in the process of advising a participant and providing services to them, at the very least, I would recommend that they have a completed resume, right? That they have, maybe some job offers or have already preferably taken a job and are working, right? And maybe even are happy where they're working, right? But, just in general, or have been enrolled in post-secondary training. Those are just some good rules of thumb as far as when to exit a participant. Essentially, you exit them when they're ready to move on from you, right? When you've done the services that they need, and the only services they may need in the future are the kinds of follow-up services, which remember, follow-up services do include things like supportive services. You can provide supportive services and follow-up. So don't let necessarily supportive services hold you up. But like I said, they should have a resume, hopefully some interview prep, or even better yet, already have secured employment. So now let's move on to a little more complicated answer of when does performance start to be captured. So I have two examples here. For this first participant, if I scroll down here, as you can see, to the WIOA application here, take a look at this one. This participant exited on June 13th, 2022. Okay. If you scroll down to the bottom, you will see the closure date and the exit date at 6/13/2022. Now, when you enter a closure, as you all know, and close all the services, IEPs, and that type of thing, this exit date does not populate immediately, right? We all know about the 91-day rule. So this exit date does not populate immediately. After 90 days passes, the exit date will populate to match the closure date. Okay, that's just a heads up. That 90 days is not, like I'm going to show you in a second, that's not necessarily the same time frame that you'll perform follow-up. That's just the reason for that 90 days is due to co-enrollment purposes. If an individual has a Wagner Pizer account or an apprenticeship account or a trade account or any other module within the system, remember we have a common reporting platform provided by Geographic Solutions. That 90 days is to ensure that no services are still being provided by one of our partners because we do have a common exit policy built into the law. Anyway, that's a little bit more than you possibly need to know, but it is what it is. Let's move down and take a look at when the follow-up periods actually begun to be reported and captured, right? So even though the participant exited in June of 2022, which would have been the fourth quarter of that program year, right? Because the program year runs from July to June. You'll take a look here and you'll notice that the follow-up was not for the fourth quarter of that program year. It was the next quarter, which would have been September 30th of the same year. So when we say employment in first quarter or follow-up of first quarter, what we're really saying, the full phrase, would be first quarter after the completion of the exiting quarter. So this individual's exit quarter was, April to June. So the follow-up is going to be required sometime between July and September. Let me show you another example so you can kind of see what I'm talking about and compare it to somebody who exited closer to the beginning of the quarter. So if we look at this participant here, let me pull him up. You're going to see that his case exited July 31st of 2023. So like I just mentioned, that means that he exited in the first quarter of that program year, right? So if you take a look at his follow-up dates, again, here's the exit closure date, 7/31/23, but his follow-up dates have actually been pushed back to December because his exiting quarter ran from July to September of that year, meaning the first quarter after the exiting quarter ran from October to December. Okay. So there is so that can be a little confusing. So I've shown you an example of someone who exited at the end of a quarter and someone that exited at the beginning of a quarter. The important thing is the quarter that they exit, the subsequent or following quarter will be the first quarter of follow-up, right? And then obviously we complete all follow-up, but as we all know, the second and fourth quarter follow-ups is where the employment is captured, right? All the other things are captured elsewhere, right? We discussed how measurable skills gains captured in this ribbon or in this ribbon, how credentials are captured in this ribbon. But as far as employment, median earnings, retention with the same employer, and training related employment, those are all captured here in the follow-up ribbon at the second and fourth quarters, respectively, right? And what we're talking about again is the second or fourth quarter after the completion of the exiting quarter. This is pretty complicated stuff, right? This is time math, which is not my favorite kind of math. So just remember that your system will you can set up system alerts to be notified when follow-up is about to be required for your clients. I highly recommend that you make use of that, right? Unless you just really like filling out your Outlook calendar with every participant that walks in your door, those alerts are going to be far more valuable than trying to just memorize this stuff, right? Anyway, I hope that answered everybody's question. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to email us here at WDD State Reporting. You can send it to the help desk or you can send it to me directly. And if anybody has any requests for these kind of mini training videos, I certainly don't mind creating those. So just send that our way as well. Great job and keep up the good work for the citizens of Alabama.